And welcome to Montgomery Now. I am Kim Betton, your host. It is such a pleasure to be here to join you. Today we're talking about poetry. Do you like poetry? What about your children? Do they like poetry? It means so much, and we have a very special guest just for you. A lot of information and a great book to talk about. All this and so much more. Don't go away. We'll be right back. And thank you so much for joining us once again. We're here on Montgomery Now, right here in the studios in Gaithersburg, Maryland for Montgomery Community Media. I am Kim Betton, your host. And joining me now is Brenda Bunting. She is an author and poet, and she's a great writer. You definitely have to check out her book. It's called Poems of Love and Violence in Between Life and Death, second edition. Thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing great, Kim.
Very, very good. So first of all, before we get more into the book, tell me a little bit about, how you got started with poetry and what it means to you.
Well, I have a lifelong love affair with poetry, and it really started way back in the 10th grade in Neptune, New Jersey at an English class where I read Gwendolyn Brooks' We Real Cool, and I was never the same after that. And poetry really has evolved so much over the years. The introduction of rap music has really done so much for poetry, the way it's used in schools, and even in therapeutic cases it has been used to help people deal with traumatic incidents and different things like that. So poetry is branching out. It's used in a lot of ministries, in religious ministries, faith-based ministries and things like that. So poetry is really exciting right now. It's all over the place, and you might see it on any street corner in America.
I know, poetry, when we think about, English in schools and classes and students really engaging in writing, poetry is a fun way to learn, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. It's a very good way to teach people, and the use of rhyme is very, very good in trying to remember something, just making up anagrams and different things like that to try to remember, things that you need on your tests and stuff like that. So poetry has a lot of different uses, definitely.
Who has inspired you in terms of, poets, and who inspires you?
Well, definitely Gwendolyn Brooks was the first person who really inspired me. Years later, after my father passed away, I found out that he wrote poetry and did not know that. I actually like Robert Frost, who is, an American poet, and just all different sort of young people, the things that they're doing with spoken words. Sometimes I just go to YouTube and I just look at the different type of things that are coming out, and it is amazing, the craftsmanship and the skill and just really the love that people have, the protest poetry that people use when, they want to really get across, because so many people nowadays feel like they don't have a voice, and they're using poetry as a form of protest and to get out what they want to say. And as Gil Scott-Heron said, the revolution will not be televised, but it certainly is being verbalized.
Right. And I know, how can people get in contact with you? I know you are on Facebook, you're everywhere. You just were telling me earlier that you even recite your poetry, on Facebook.
Oh yeah,
that's
yeah.
cool.
I put
With
little
Facebook
clips
Live
out there.
and all these other.
Yeah. They can just see me. I have a couple of clips out there here and there. Most of the time, I do open mics. For right now, there's a lot of poets on the DC scene, and they're doing, of course, Busboys and Poets, but there's other organizations too. Spoken World Poetry does something, Bossa does something. There's the DC Poets.
Okay.
You have a lot of different organizations
Very
who are
good.
doing things out there.
Very good. We're talking with Brenda Bunting, and she is an author and poet. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
There are many ways of wrapping production cables. Most of them are wrong.
To protect the cable and keep it from tangling, the accepted method in the video industry is the RCA wrap, commonly known as over-under. This is how you do it. Grab the cable for the length where you want to make your first loop. Bring your hands together. Now gently twist so that the cable forms a natural loop. This is over. After your first loop, reach down, palm of your hand away from your body, grab the next bit of cable, and bring your hands together, looping the cable under. Now reach down again and loop the cable over. Continue to alternate between over and under until your cable is fully coiled. If your cable is wrapped properly, you can uncoil the cable quickly with no loops, kinks, or tangles. It takes practice to master the over-under method, but when you do, you will make your facilities manager very happy.
If you want to learn more about this or other video production techniques, sign up for classes at Montgomery Community Media.
Welcome back to Montgomery Now. We are joined here with Brenda Bunting. We're talking about poetry. We love poetry. I love poetry. Poetry is in music. It's in everything we do. It's in our readings. When you're thinking. Poetry is a beautiful work of art, and she's very talented, folks. You got to check her out. Where can folks get in touch with you?
Well, my book is on Amazon.com right now, the second edition that I put out. Also, the first edition is, but I am partial to the second edition, Poems of Love and Violence, In Between Life and Death. And I chose that to deal with all four of those themes. So I do poems of love and some of violence, some of life, and some of death. So that's really what the book is about, is those four themes.
Okay, that's a part of life.
Yes, absolutely.
Very good.
Yeah.
Now you have a little inspirational poem to talk to us about, read
Yes.
to us about. Tell us just briefly a little bit about the poem.
So this poem is called Voices of the Season, and it's just kind of pensive, kind of like reminiscence, just thinking about all the four seasons that used to be so clear. They're not so clear anymore because we're getting snow in this summer and different things like that, but that's what this poem pretty much is about.
So I'll step back and you can take it away.
Voices of the Season. In spring, petal blossoms lift upturned faces to new bright sunny mornings. The tired land breathes the fresh warm air resurrected from the cold cross once more. In summer, love seeps lazily through the heat heightened air. Days stretch forever, full of cold food and lemonade into dusky nights. Roaring tides and singing birds for miles and miles and miles are heard. In fall, chilled whispers caress the land slowly, warning animals with lively pageantry of leaves turning colors. We hug into updated versions of animal skins and wait. In winter, white burial of purity still and bright. Backdrop stark, naked tree limbs, they shiver and break in the strong cold winds. Everything and everybody else burrows away, in houses, in holes, in caves, occasionally surfacing to play. Voices of the Season.
That's beautiful. When you write your poetry, Brenda, where do you write it? We only have a couple of seconds left, but what gets you in the zone to write these different types of poetries?
Just life, everything that I see. I mean, it could just be, usually a phrase will just kind of pop into my head. I believe there is a muse. And from that, usually a poem will happen. I could write a piece, like, the really good ones I write in like an hour.
Wow, that's a gift.
Yeah.
That's a gift.
I believe so.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Ladies and gentlemen, Brenda Bunting. You want to check her out? Hold up the book again.
Yes, absolutely.
There you go. And once again, thank you so much. And we'll see you around the community.
Absolutely.
She does open mic poetry as well around
Yes.
town. So be sure to check her out. What's your Facebook page?
It is Brenda Bunting, and I also have a poetry page. It's just my
Excellent.
name. Yes.
Excellent. Very good. Thank you so much for joining us right here on Montgomery Now. Have a good one.